You're listening to WLPN LP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio, Bridgeport, Chicago. It's November 29th, 2017. It's a Wednesday, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable.
Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard, seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard, seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I am your host, Chris Quinn, coming to you, as always, from the Co-Prosperity Sphere here in Bridgeport, Chicago. As always, from Studio B. But one thing that's not normal is that it's not our normal Thursday show. We're breaking on live on the air on a Wednesday night, and we're starting a little early. Excuse me. I usually have my throat. I spend a half hour clearing my throat usually, so for the first half hour of the show, I'll probably be clearing my throat until it's the normal. Yeah, and I wanted to thank everyone at Lumpen Radio for having us on, especially the fearless leaders. Fearless Leader 1, obviously, being Mr. Logan Bay, but also to Jamie Trecker for letting us pop in here on a Wednesday night, and also to producer Serge. Been a while. Yeah. So for coming in and helping us out. He's been busy studying. He's studying to become a real producer one day. So it's like the Pinocchio. He's someday, a fairy will come down and make him a real producer on a real radio show.
That's not what I'm saying. It sounds terrible.
I love that he has to qualify that I wasn't being serious. I think most people knew that, Serge. Okay. But you never know. Anyway, I wanted to thank everyone who is listening. Hopefully we're not breaking into people who are normally tuning into the normally scheduled programs here on Lumpen Radio.
Which is much better than this.
Yes.
So,
well, you're a guest, so you're like one tier down then. I mean, you're even worse.
Oh, I'm aware of that.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to thank everyone who is listening live. And if you are listening live, you should hop into the chat room over at tlk.io/WLPN if you're listening over the airwaves, or you can also listen live with the Lumpen Radio app, which is my preferred method. I also often do it with TuneIn Radio, and works very well. So those of you who are listening live, thank you very much. Those of you who are not listening live, thank you as well. I'm an equal opportunity thanker. iTunes or what are the other podcasting ones? Stitcher. People tell me. There are lots of other ones now, and more all the time. I'm not very tech savvy, so.
He's pretending to be cool. He looks at all of these numbers.
I'm on terrestrial radio. I mean, come on. Yeah, I'm not very tech savvy.
Did you just say terrestrial radio?
Terrestrial.
We are above the town of Bridgeport in a dirigible right now. We're not
true.
Terrestrial by any means.
Well, yeah, but yes, I can't argue with the facts. So it is true. We are floating high above. We are tethered. It gets windy, but anyway, for those of you who are listening for the first time, and there may be some today, since we're things are a little off. Let me explain to you what you're listening to. This is the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable, and essentially, the goal of this show is to open up a window into how the people making, selling, marketing, and facilitating the beer, getting into your glass, feel about the topics that are a part of their everyday lives. And many of my greatest beer experiences have been talking about beer while sharing beers with people whose opinions I respect and admire. And it's these experiences that I hope to capture with this show, the Insiders Roundtable. So I will now introduce my guests. Some of them really don't like to be, wait to be introduced. They just want to blurt things out that they find funny. But I do have to reward them because I always introduce my guests in a certain order. And I do have to say that all my guests' opinions are their own and not the opinions of any other entity that they may or may not be associated with. Not Lumpen Radio and not the Beer Temple. So don't go after the Beer Temple for something that Sir William Charles Moore says. So we do introduce people in order of seniority. I think you are the senior-most member of the round table guest panel today, Will. So I wanted to say hello. Thank you for coming on. And how are you, man?
Doing well. It's good to be here.
Good. Have you been drinking double IPAs all day prior to the show like last time when you were on?
Nah, I've been sticking to hazy today. That's the flavor of the evening, evidently. Although we, forgot to taste our secret, whatever that was. So there it is.
What? When is the? Are you allowed to talk about when the Spiteful thing is going to open the tap room and brew?
It's gonna happen this year in much of the likelihood scenarios. So,
okay.
Look for it sooner rather than later. There will be an announcement once we actually are cleared to.
Oh, good.
It's getting close. It's getting real close. That's all I have to say.
Good. Got the dartboard set up yet?
No, but we installed the spotlight today, so we're gonna get that backboard in. I already talked to Fitz about it. We got it happening.
Okay. Oh, so that's going to be Fitz's home court then as well. I see how he rolls.
No, I think that he
darts me in the back.
He was trying to undermine whatever advantage may be there. Anyways, there's lots of darts played between myself and Mr. Quinn, and obviously he usually pulls out a victory in the end after I've had 10 to 12 shots of Malort.
Yeah. So. Now, thank you for coming on. Our next guest has joined us in darts one time. Mr. Pat Fahey, Master Crusherone, as he's more commonly known.
At least on this show.
Mm-hmm. When you're on the show, that's all that matters.
That is all that matters. In my whole life, that's all that matters at this point.
But when you're here, your family, and you're a Master Crusherone. And what are you crushing? What are you crushing now?
In this moment right now, I am crushing some Bell's Lager of the Lakes.
Nice.
Infraction. Skipping ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I didn't say what are you into. I just said what are you literally crushing right now. You could hate it.
It's true. And I don't hate it. I mean, this is a beautiful beer.
Okay.
I brought this one specifically for the beginning of the show.
To crush.
Okay.
There you go. What else is new with you?
I don't know. I'm in Chicago right now. That's cool. That's new in this moment. Right. Fall's been busy. Been ciceroning in a lot of different places. So yeah, it's good to be home for 4 or 5 days at a time.
Cool.
That's what's new.
Where have you been? Do you recall?
The last couple big trips, one of the things that I've talked about a number of times over the last maybe 6 to 12 months that I've been on the show is we've been working on Spanish rollout and sort of increasing presence of the program in Latin America. So I did judging in a conference for a week down in Santiago, Chile, and did judging in a conference more recently for a week down in Mexico City. So those are probably the last two,
pro or homebrew?
Both pro.
Okay.
So, and it's been really incredible to see. This was my first time doing the one down in Chile. I did the one in Mexico last year, but the professional brewing scenes in both of those places are really starting to develop and starting to produce some pretty incredible beer. I mean, I said because sort of in the midst of all that, GABF also happened. So judged at GABF, judged at those other places, and made the comment that the best beers that I tasted at GABF were better than the best beers I tasted at these competitions. But in terms of flawed beer or beer that had issues to it, I had a similar amount of beer that had sort of some issue to it at GABF as to my time down in Chile and down in Mexico. So
That's impressive.
it is impressive. I mean, really seeing some really good beer and not that much beer with substantial issues when I was in both of those markets, which is really awesome to see. It's really cool.
And I'm just going to assume that they're heavily the beers there are heavily dominated. Still in the half hour, I can clear my throat. Are heavily dominated by or heavily influenced by the American craft scene, I would imagine.
It's kind of interesting, and I haven't done that much travel in like Asia, for example, but at least in Central and South America and other sort of developing beer markets that I've seen, it is very, very heavily American beer influence. Like one of the things that I thought that was insane. So we got down to Chile, and one of the first events that they had us do was this beer release for a local brewery there. How long has hazy IPA been a thing in the U.S.? Like a year and a half?
A big thing for a year and
maybe
a half.
like 18 months. I'm in Santiago at a brewery release of their hazy IPA. Like Northeast IPA is a thing in Brazil and Chile.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
That's
yeah.
nuts. That's like blows my mind. So
I'm going on a trip, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I was asking some people who'd been over there what should I bring, and they're like, "Oh, New England IPAs." I was like, "Okay, that's what I'll bring to a classic farmhouse brewery, I guess." But I have one question. Well, I probably have more than one question, but one question that I have is, I really thought it was neat when I was in England several years ago, how the craft beer scene, and they definitely called it, there was craft beer, like macro beer, and then like traditional beer, and they were like kind of three things, and there was overlap for sure, but the craft beer scene, as it was called over there, was heavily U.S. influenced, even in England, a very traditional brewing country that, I would say most of our brewing tradition kind of came from. We borrowed from, obviously, a lot of other places, but I say the biggest influence, in my opinion, came from English styles. But it was cool to see how in England they had kind of made it their own in a little way. They were doing U.S. styles, which were Americanized versions more often than not of English beers, and then reinterpreting with just a little English twist to them.
put a little English on it.
Yeah, they put a little English on it. There you go. See, I just served it up, and you.
I had to take it.
You had to.
Well done.
You had
I
to.
mean, even beyond just being sort of like in the rest of the world, like American influence, which it is to an extent. It's using lots of hops is sort of a thing that's our thing. But it is really just like IPA culture. Like you go anywhere in Central and South America, and like IPA is what everybody's drinking.
Yeah.
So
my question is, that was all set up to my question. So
a long setup.
did you, long, boring, meandering
I've lost
setup.
the thread. Go on though.
But did you see any sort of tweaks or subtleties to these beers in these countries that was kind of unique to either Central and South America or to each scene individually?
Not a ton yet.
Okay.
And that's something that was like a big topic of conversation. Like there were, at the conference down in Chile, there were a number of presentations, and one of the questions that kept coming up is like, okay, well, how do we create our own sort of indigenous style? Really is kind of what people were talking about. And the point that a lot of people made is it's like, people like in the US even, we don't really set out to create a new style. It's like somebody does something that's cool or popular or becomes popular, and other people start doing it. And then at the point where there's a critical mass of people doing this thing that's different, then you have a different style. Like people weren't like, what we need? We need to make an IPA that looks like mud. That's what we need. Like hazy IPA wasn't somebody like, oh my God, this is going to be the next thing. Like people did it. It was popular, and now people are doing it, and now it's a style. And one of the things that I have heard thrown around a lot, especially for places like Brazil down there, they have crazy fruits. Like they have the most awesome assortment of exotic tropical varieties of fruit. And so one of the things that a lot of people when they're down there will say is like, you know, you guys just got to find a way to leverage these ingredients that you have that nobody else has access to. And you see a little bit of that. I think people are starting to do that. But yeah, at least at this point, the hot thing is hazy IPA down there. So
And
Okay.
currently here as well, but I do think that that's an excellent point. Returning to the land, that's how you get a taste that is non-replicable. And I think that that's true for Chile as much as Brazil, even though they may not have as much, insane fruit to work with. That's, I think. Oh wait, we should finish introductions. What the hell is going on here?
Yes.
went down a rabbit hole there.
It happens.
Yes. Last and certainly not least is Nate Nelson.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Not a whole lot.
What's okay?
Oh, nothing. Anyway,
on
back to the
moving on.
conversation.
Moving on. No trips for you. No, you haven't been any beer fests. No, nothing.
No, not really. I'm getting married in the spring, so I'm mostly focused on putting the funding in that direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you in line for
I was.
any beers this weekend?
Yeah.
Oh wait, I knew you were in line.
Yeah,
because
I only saw
you.
you twice this weekend.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah, it's
Bourbon
very,
County.
It's very important for me to support local business like the Beer Temple and AB InBev.
Yeah. There you go.
The little guys.
The little guys.
Well, they're going to be local for Chris here shortly, so that's right.
That's right.
He's bringing the Chicago back to Belgium.
That's right. That's right.
Oh man, don't bring that to Brussels.
Oh wait, this is not what I want to be looking at. Okay, so pulling up the wrong
Sure.
sheet.
Sure.
So let's get right into it. Beers that people have been digging on lately, or excited to try, or just beers of note, we'll call it, that they've had lately, or want to put in their mouth soon. Anything? Anyone? Who wants to go first? Will?
Yeah, I'll go first because I know Pat's about to go on a diatribe about Mexican beer. There's
I wouldn't
this,
call it a diatribe. That's rude.
he's going to give a sermon on Mexican beer. I would submit that the beer that I've had most recently that's super worth drinking is Schlenkerla's Märzen. That is a fantastic piece of you will never know the truth of smoked beer until you've come to appreciate that. And I had one actually last night, and it was fantastic.
So good.
Have any of you guys been to Bamberg?
No, but
Nope.
that's top of the list.
I-
Anywhere else that I mean, that's where a lot of our malt comes from, and I'm certainly super interested in being, in going especially to Schlinkerlach because it's like. It's a scene I hear, but I don't know what that means.
Why don't you
in
listen to
Germany.
someone who's
So-
been there?
No.
That's right.
I was going to say I haven't been. So
Oh.
I mean, I do a fair amount of travel for work, but Bamberg is one of those places that's like near the absolute top of my list. It's just I've had friends visit and they're just like it's beautiful,
Yeah, I've heard
it's incredible,
very good things.
and you drink a lot of smoked beer, and
that's-
your life is good.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted to express to people is that if you see a smoked beer, drink it and then immediately judge someone for not being Schlinkerla. That's all I'm saying. That's the truth of the matter, and it's excellent. I was happy about that.
The Helles is my personal favorite. The oak smoke I like as well.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
all
I've heard
they're all good in their own right.
They are, and I've heard that the Helles doesn't even have smoked malt.
doesn't.
It's
It doesn't.
residual
It's
smoke.
just residual smoke.
It's from the yeast, actually.
Oh, really?
It is.
Just
Yeah, they
repitching.
repitched the yeast from the Märzen.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
That's really incredible but the Märzen, you have to drink a lot of that in life. That's all I'm saying.
It's fabulous.
I'm glad that I have a couple people that will agree with me that smoked beer is worth drinking because I've been,
It's-
fighting. That's an uphill battle
And
that
it's
I've
a
been
tough
fighting
thing
for
too.
years. So
It's a tough thing too. If it's too dry, it's just really
Well,
abrasive.
I know some place that has a keg of Schlenkerla Märzen, so I better see that place. Better see a lot of you when that goes on.
Oh,
it will see a lot less of that beer when it goes on. So let's
Yeah.
let's make sure that we're ready for whatever happens.
Okay,
All right,
so that was your beer, is Schlenkerla Märzen.
that's right.
Okay, who's next? I'll go next. What is this beer? I've never done this before, but what is this beer?
Don't. Okay.
Don't.
Just okay. Go ahead.
Don't.
Do
Okay,
it.
I won't. There's a beer that I'm not the biggest fan of. This is a
Yep,
New
don't
England
do it.
IPA.
You had an excellent beer earlier, though.
New England styled IPA.
Yeah. I think this beer had some. Maybe the seamer was wrong. This beer is oxidized or something. This beer is messed up. Anyway,
Or is it rustic?
Is that
Yeah.
what you've been drinking recently that you liked? Like everything has been worse than this beer?
yes,
So
yes.
this is
I
what
see
you
where you're
have to
trying to
lean
push
on?
me, guys. No, you're right. I've had you know what I had? We had the Etaler Kloster Dunkel.
Oh,
that
that's so good.
Yeah, we put on at the bar, and I've been really digging that. That was good. And I also we had the Overhaze just a moment ago from Mars, and I dug that as well.
Thumbs up. Well done.
Tasty treat.
But if let me see if there's another one that I can pick that I think was really, really special that I dug quite an extra bit. Steve-O. We also have the Steve-O Pils, which is a Firestone Walker Russian River unfiltered Pilsner. Collaboration. And they did it was a one-off, but then they just did a rebrew, and it's going to the proceeds of sales from the beer are going to help victims of the fire, which was right out there in the area where both those breweries are. So if you see a Steve-O, drink it is what I say. That's kind of a call to action, but if you want to.
It's a highly crushable beer,
Yeah.
if I do say so myself.
Yeah, so that's mine. All right, guys, who's next?
Do you want to go?
I guess it's me.
Go for it.
I mean, I would say that the most interesting thing that I've consumed recently is actually a 2011 pre-Band 4 Loco, but since that's technically not beer, I'm going to say that the most interesting beer I've had lately is the new Lambic producer, Lambic Fabrique.
Yeah.
Their first bottling, Brett L. So
How was it?
it was actually quite good. It was young. It was a blend of 1 and not quite 2-year-old lambic, so it's still a little bit green, but the bones are good, and I'm really looking forward to more of the beers that they produce.
Where'd you pick that bottle up?
The internet, Chris.
Ah, got it. Illegally.
It's morally
No, I'm
gray. Yeah, but it was quite good, and it's interesting in that they're very very particular and very proud that they're not blending other producers' lambic, but they're having the wort contract brewed, and then they inoculate, and then they cooper.
Sure. Rather than buying lambic and blending it.
Yeah, like Udbeersol and Gustakri de Cam and Tolkien. So they buy pre-made lambic beer.
And they blend.
They put it in containers and then they ship it and then fill barrels. So these guys are just a little bit closer to producing.
So they buy young lambic rather than unfermented wort.
They buy unfermented wort. So
No, right. Where the other ones buy
where the other ones
very young lambic.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, I'm sure it does. Well, where do they buy their wort from?
A nearby got a clean fermenting brewery called I think Brasserie Belgu. Someplace I've never heard
Belgu.
of.
No, I've heard of Belgu. Yeah. Belgoo. Right?
Yes,
Belgu.
Belgu.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which
Used
I've
to be able
met.
to get their beer in the States. It might still be able to.
Yeah. So I guess they've got a facility like down the street.
Okay. I believe we're visiting this place.
Oh, really?
Yes. And there's also something going on called the festival of the day of the goose.
Dagen Vendigas.
Yes, that day. So we're gonna check that out too.
Oh,
so
man.
it should be fun.
Good times.
Sounds like a good day.
Yeah, the good day, the day of the goose. You're up, Pat.
So
What you been crushing lately?
So I was going to talk
Or
about.
sipping.
I was going to depart from talking about crushability. I know.
Whoa!
I'm getting a look right now.
If you didn't see, everyone's mouth dropped open.
Aghast.
I mean, not every. No, I mean, I do prefer beers that are highly drinkable.
Yeah,
at this point in the month or the year or my life. And I was going to depart from that to talk about beers in Mexico, as Sir Will mentioned, and I may still do that at some point. But Will inspired me in his talk about smoked beer. I was just down in Austin a couple weeks ago, and this is certainly not a new thing, but it was a thing I was enjoying recently. I was at Live Oak for a day. They do a lot of lager beer making, and
A lot of German styles.
of German styles, and they do a really fantastic job with them. And in particular, they have both a Grodzisky and a Lichtenheiner, like two kind of obscure but classic German / Polish-ish.
No.
ales.
Grodzisky is 100% Polish.
I mean, Grodzisky is, but like Greitzer is the German ver.
Yeah, okay. Well, that could be debated. In
Anyway,
any case,
is it integral to the
They
story?
brought only smoked beer to GABF. God bless those guys.
Live Oak is fucking rad. Ooh.
Ah, jeez.
You know, I expletive show, and then
Yeah. Well, then it wasn't.
and then it wasn't,
And then it
now
was
it is
again.
again. Sorry.
Anyway.
So Live Oak is really cool. They make a lot of really good beer, but in particular, those two smoked beers, I think, they're beautiful examples of those rather obscure styles, and they both come in like the 3 to 3.5% alcohol range, so they're highly quaffable.
It's like you're avoiding a certain word almost.
It's not.
Oh.
It's not. I would crush them in an instant.
I
And
would
did.
quaff them.
It
so
has a certain
whatever.
consumability.
Yeah.
I imagine him like looking at it like Drago in Rocky IV and saying, I must crush you. Although he says, I must break you, but I must crush you. And then crushing it only to himself, alone in the brewery, in the tap room.
Yeah, that's more or less what happened.
Yeah, just crushing.
You're
But
not
so-
a real crusherone unless you crush alone. Is that not?
Yeah.
The Crusherones crush alone.
Yeah.
Forever crush alone.
Master Crush Alone.
There's
As a tear rolls down his cheek.
There's a very sad photo series that this might inspire. But yeah, those two beers of all of their, and actually when I was there, I can't remember. I think they usually have like 10 beers on tap, and at the point where I was down there, 4 of them featured some amount of smoke flavor, which I thought was awesome and is a little bit more than normal.
They only brought smoked beer to GABF. These guys,
bless them.
God bless them. Really, they were the place I was looking for, and well done, gentlemen. I hear you make excellent lager, and congrats on the hef.
If you ever go to Austin, they're like 5 minutes from the airport.
They're practically the Dovetail of Austin.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You owe it to yourself to make it.
Well, guys,
Yeah.
I think it's about time that we take a little bit of a reprieve and listen to some of the other entertaining shows that Lumpin' Radio has to offer, and then we will come back with more of the Insiders Roundtable. Welcome back to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Quinn, and I am joined on this lovely Wednesday evening by my guests Nate Nelson, Pat Fahey, and I presume Sir William Charles Moore will be back.
Nah, he left.
Although he is just gone. I don't know where he went. Knowing him, he probably went to like smoke or something, but whatever. So we were talking about well, let me start here. Do you guys want to talk about Left Hand and their White Labs yeast issue, or the BCS release this week?
I have more firsthand knowledge of one of them, but that's not to say we shouldn't talk about the other.
Pat, any interest? You don't want to touch it. You don't want to say. You don't want to go on the record saying which one you want to talk about.
I would like to defer to your ultimate wisdom and omniscience when it comes to selecting good topics of conversation.
Well, that's a huge mistake. But all right. Well, this is something that I think is interesting, that the left hand thing, and I want to talk a little bit about it. So, look who's back. Anyway, Will Moore is now back. So we're going to talk about the left hand thing, Will, and it's interesting. So essentially, what happened was a bad batch of yeast got out from bad batches of yeast.
Several.
Yeah.
Ostensibly.
Yes, ostensibly.
Allegedly.
And this affected more than one brewery. There were other breweries who, if this is the case, would have been affected by this. And there were several breweries who, around the same time, were having some issues. Some big, larger breweries. There were probably many breweries who were, could, if this was the case. All this is allegedly. So let's just say that right out the bat.
Allegedly is a good word to use here.
Yeah.
For the time being.
So, and the yeast was, contaminated, or I don't know how you would put it. How would you put it, Pat?
This was a.
Do you not want to talk about it, Pat?
No, I'm happy to talk about this. Absolutely.
So
but I want Will to talk about it first because he's excited.
I'm not particularly. I actually am more excited to see Pat's opinion on this. At what point do you think that you could detect diastaticus in a standard commercial example of beer? If you had to just ballpark it.
I have no idea would be my first response. But one of the things that I am the most curious about is that, this has been reported a number of times. I know, Chris, you shot us all a link of the one article about Left Hand bringing this suit. And I've read a number of different articles, and I think they all came from the same source.
Probably, yeah.
Because I've read the same story a number of times, and the story as I've read it doesn't really make sense. And I don't know if it's that what Left Hand didn't make sense, or what I think is more likely is that this original story was written by somebody that didn't know what they were talking about, and so they wrote it in a way that doesn't make sense. But one of the things that the story talks about is it's Left Hand shut down production for 2 weeks, and they took about everything in their brewery to, try to figure out what the issue was. And then they were like, oh my God, we got this advice from another brewer that we should do a DNA test of our packaged beer and see what this biological issue is. It's that doesn't make any sense. I feel like the first thing to do would be to be let's try and figure out what it is before we dismantle our brewery. So I don't know if that's being misreported or if that's actually what happened and what they didn't make sense. Similarly, I don't know how strong of a case they'd be able to put together if what the article that I read said was that through testing their packaged beer, they found diastaticus in the package,
which is a wild yeast.
Yeah, so Saccharomyces diastaticus is a wild yeast that produces some amount of phenolic flavors, so kind of spicy black peppercorn sort of flavors, and then also can attenuate a beer a little bit more than regular beer yeast does. So it will ferment it a bit further. It'll make it a bit more dry, and it'll basically eat sugars that regular yeast can't. So it will up the carbonation level in the beer, which is one of the reasons why they noticed it so much in Nitro Stout specifically.
That's got a bunch of lactose in it. Is that something that diastaticus could potentially break down?
I actually don't know. I don't
there
know.
are yeasts that can, but who knows?
Brettanomyces can break down lactose. I don't know about diastaticus. That is a really great question.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question that maybe the internet could answer that I don't know off the top of my head. But so the other thing that the article stated is it's they ran lab tests on a bunch of their beers and found that they had diastaticus in it. So they're like, well, it came from White Labs. What would make the most sense to me and what would put together the strongest case is if, one, when they found that there was an issue, they ran tests and found that diastaticus was a part of it. At that point, it would maybe make sense if they kind of combed through the brewery looking for potential source, What would really be kind of like smoking gun, in my opinion, is if they ran tests on yeast delivered to them from White Labs and found diastaticus in that. Because if you find diastaticus in your finished beer, like, at least from a legal perspective, I don't know how you could be like, no, there's no way it came from our environment. It definitely came from the yeast supplier. Because there's a lot of opportunity for contamination between your, getting the yeast and your finished product.
Second, additionally, there should be plenty of other brewers that have used that same yeast. And if that's the case, that their beer also has diastaticus in it, then we know where the culprit may or may not lie, allegedly.
Allegedly.
But I'm just saying, like that.
Well, isn't that exactly what happened?
There
Wasn't there a rash about a year and a half ago of that stuff happening?
A number of diastaticus
all around the country
issues around a similar time,
around the same time
frame there, yeah. And at the time, people posited that it might have been yeast supplier based, but it was kind of like, it was hearsay at that point. People were just like, this might be this, and people were like, you can't say it. But at this point, the fact that Left Hand felt like they could take it to court makes me think that they at least have some amount of evidence of something.
I would think so too.
And truly, I imagine the only way that you could really, like, I don't think it's enough proof to just say these beers we made with this, and these ones had diastaticus in them in the package, so that came from the supplier. Like, there's just so much that could happen between the your yeast supply and finished product, that really the thing that I feel like they would have to have is, this is a yeast culture that we received from White Labs and we tested it and it had diastaticus in it. Like, that I think you could take to court.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Allegedly, I do not know.
Yes. Well, obviously that will shake out.
Mm-hmm.
These are all allegations, but they're essentially alleging that White Labs, which is a very well-known yeast supplier, one of the most well-known, I mean, even down to the homebrew level, gave them essentially contaminated yeast. And, okay, who cares, whatever. We actually talked about this a year or so ago. And, I mentioned that there were rumors that it might have been for a yeast supplier, or that these might be linked together, that there were other breweries that this was an issue with. And I know that some of these breweries have been working hand in hand and all along. Now, the thing that is interesting to me is, more than just, this is a batch and now somebody's suing somebody else, is, when you start thinking about it, I mean, these breweries are putting a huge amount of trust into these labs. I mean, what Left Hand is, and now Left Hand has not been doing well. I mean, they're one of the craft breweries that is seeing big declines. When they talk about the bubble bursting and all these like articles that come out, Left Hand is one of the ones that gets called out first and foremost. And what they're saying is that this is in part due to this, because there was a time where, their core products and their flagship products were flawed. We had, overcarbonation, which can mean bottles are breaking. Their nitro stout is their flagship, the milk stout on nitro, and it disrupted the
cascading effects.
Yes, because there was other carbonation
Allegedly.
in there. Right.
No, there were.
That was definitely
that
The
happened.
alleged cascading.
So then what happens is, your consumers and your retailers lose trust in that. They take it off draft. They put something else back on. And then it doesn't get back on. And then the distributors start to lose faith, and it kind of cascades backwards. This is all what they're saying was a result, or this is something they could say is a potential result of this. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I think, that's, I think it's valid that if you have a huge, at this point in time, the competition is so tough that if you have something that, our nitro line's messed up, everyone hated it, everyone returned it, okay, we'll get rid of that. These beers are bad. And you know what? It maybe just never makes its way back on the draft board, or on the shelf again. Or people try it and say, this beer's garbage, I'm not going to have it again.
Yeah.
What are you going to say, Pat?
And I could be wrong about this, but I don't think it even was so much that distributors or retailers or customers lost faith in the brand. I think truly it's a product of just like there's so much rotation and such in the market right now, and so they had to recall a ton of beer that basically removes them from all of these tap handles all at once. And so all of a sudden you've got all of these empty SKUs, like those are going to be filled with other things. And when your beer is better, you don't just instantly get all of those back. And so I really think that beyond just a loss of like confidence or faith in the brand, the act of having to recall so much of their core portfolio really probably did hugely disadvantage them. And if it is as a result of one of their raw materials suppliers, like, yeah, that supplier should probably be held accountable to some extent.
And additionally, when you're looking at, your flagship, especially on the on-prem side, being a nitro beer, which typically any place that's pouring it has one nitro line, potentially, you're done. If there is ever a problem with your quality, you're never going to recover from that in some ways. So certainly, if it is the case that White Labs is at fault in this, and given that Left Hand is a venerable old brewery that's been around a long time, I would not, want to point a finger at them without either, if they think that they can really level a serious, accusation at White Labs. So this is a hairy situation. This is definitely not something that anyone wanted to see from either of these companies, and this is not gonna end well for anyone.
There is so much hair in this situation. It's truly so hairy.
Also, kind of the second little issue, or what do I call it? I can't think of words today. But anyway, the second kind of thing that has come up with White Labs in the past couple of years, drama, I'll call it, because remember there was the issue with the Brett Dree. Was it?
Was that a White Labs thing too?
Yeah, I think so.
Where it wasn't Brett?
Yep.
Yikes.
Brett Trois.
It
was Brett Trois.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And then it was like, nope, it's Sac Trois.
Yeah. And they were like, whoops.
Everyone who is not a huge nerd that's listening right now is like, what in
So let's
God's
talk about
name
that.
are you speaking
So essentially, they were
Klingon.
selling stuff as Brettanomyces, a quote-unquote wild yeast. It's just a different species than typical brewer's yeast, and it behaves very differently. And it also is much more expensive to buy from a yeast lab. So they were selling stuff as Brett because it gave off these funky flavors, but we're also saying and it ferments really fast. And there was a time where people were doing 100% Brett IPAs, and they were making them really fast, and you're like, whoa, this is crazy. Then they're super pineapple-y and stuff like that. And then another yeast lab. I think I can just come out and
There's two big ones.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was one of the ones that maybe people from this have been on this show in the past, kind of discovered that this was not the case, and maybe allegedly, I don't know, and I could be wrong, and
No, it's definitely
give
not
myself
a
some
Brett
outs.
strain.
But it's not a Brett strain, and that is kind of a known thing, and people are like, how did White Labs not know this? I mean, I don't know enough to know, but they're like, they DNA test this stuff, and they would know whether it is or isn't. And then people started getting this bad taste in their mouth because they're like, well, they're incentivized to not know because they can charge more if it's Brett than if it's Sac. Hey, this is way out of my league. This is all hot takes here, but I don't want to get a letter from White Labs.
Well, I think that someone that could speak to that would be a microbiologist, and until then, we can just, kind of wag a finger with a little bit of hesitation.
Tip of the cap, wag of the finger.
Not an ace move there, guys.
I'm just saying this is the second time there's been trauma with them associated to it.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's
yeah.
And one of the things
I want to remain skeptical because I don't know how this
I
is
think
going to
that's
shake
fair.
out, and
I
this
think
is
that's
very
fair.
this is very bad. This is a bad situation to be in.
one of the things that you can say is, regardless of what is true or what is not true,
They are guilty. I agree.
That's
Moving
not,
on.
that's not what I was going to say. It's very bad for White Labs.
Yeah.
Because the thing is if they screwed up and that comes to light, they're going to be on the hook for probably a lot of money from Left Hand and probably from other breweries. Even if they didn't screw up, though, even if they're like totally in the clear and this is somehow something that happened on Left Hand's side, the fallout from this is going to be breweries that are currently using White Labs are going to be like, well, maybe I shouldn't use White Labs. Yeah. So similar to Will's point, like I know what I've read. I've read some things that I'm like, well, that doesn't really make sense, but I have no idea about assigning blame or fault either way. But I can say that regardless of whether or not there is blame to be assigned to White Labs, this is going to be very bad for White Labs, unfortunately.
And it is
Either
already
way.
bad for White Labs, and actually for Left Hand, unfortunately, as well.
Everyone loses. It's not pretty.
Yes. Well, the lawyers don't lose. So it's good for them.
Good for them.
Good for them.
Good for them.
So I think, should we take is it time to take our full break? No, we still have a little time.
We got to make something up for 10 minutes.
No, here, I got something we can talk about.
Uh-oh.
I don't
So-
like the sound of that.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to Belgium tomorrow.
Oh, that's
which is why
cool.
we're doing the show early.
Nice.
So I wanted to see, is there anything that you guys recommend or would be on your wish list? And if I go to any of them, I can come back and report on it. Anything that you would want to do on a trip to Belgium?
Maybe you haven't considered Bomb, but I think Bomb is really cool.
Okay.
Obviously, you're going to all the places that everyone knows are cool, of which you supplied an ample list in
So Bomb, I'm not familiar with the town.
Malt Bakery.
Malt Brewery.
Oh, that place. Yeah.
The place that makes their own malt. They've got supposedly
Yeah.
they're hooking up a satellite in Austin, which evidently is an awesome beer town. If you would ask, some people at the table, they're gonna have they just make a couple of beers that I think are unique, and I have a lot of respect for what they do. And they're little. They're little guys.
Very little.
Everyone over there is little, and nobody has. It's weird because, kind of, Belgium looms, I think, in the American craft brewer's mind as this kind of like beer behemoth, and it's just tiny. It's like, what is it? The size of Chicago? It's not. It's nothing. Like there's no one there, and
It's not quite that small, but
Is that well? But I mean,
Size
it's
of,
but it's not that
Wisconsin.
much bigger.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
in
it's the
terms of
size of
population,
Wisconsin.
not
Yeah.
like in terms of the geographic distribution. Obviously, it's bigger, but it's
Not,
not. They're
but
not.
but also not that much. You can drive from end to end in like 2.5 hours, maybe.
Well, that's what you should do: is drive end to end and go everywhere.
I think it's a
That
little
isn't
more
that how it
than
works?
that,
You
but
go, one dimension, and then
You
can
could probably train.
I've driven to the westernmost point of Belgium from Brussels. It takes an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So it's not a big country.
No. It's about the size of Wisconsin, roughly. I think square
Have you-
footage.
Well,
square
also
mileage.
never go to Wisconsin is another thing.
When
that-
you're taking your trip to Belgium, don't go to Wisconsin. That's
won't.
probably a
Pro
strong
tip.
piece of advice.
Okay. So you had Bomb.
I think Bomb would be cool if it were.
I don't think
convenient.
we're going to make it there.
Have you?
I don't think you're going to make it anywhere from where you're just checking places off the list of like not going there, not going there. Granted, they have
for
a lot,
1.
They have a lot of breweries.
Have you spent much time in Belgium before?
I've been one other time.
one of the things, and part of this is just like what I've done when I'm over there. I haven't actually done that much brewery visiting, and it's kind of a shame because I think in the U.S. I've been to a lot of breweries, and at a point they kind of it's like, okay,
Blur.
you've got a brew house, you've got a fermentation. It's pretty cool. You got equipment, but in Belgium, because they're a little bit more old world, like there's more uniqueness to each of the breweries. But I still haven't done that much brewery visiting in Belgium. One of the things that I really love in Belgium is the bar culture.
Yeah.
And truly, I don't think that there's better beer service in the world. Their draft lines are terrible. I've had some of the most foul draft beer I've ever had in Brussels. But I remember being there a few years ago, and we just stopped in Ghent really quickly, and we went to like this corner bar. Like they were advertising this crazy Michael Jackson disco party that they were like. It was like the Ghent version of a dive bar. Yeah. And we went in, we grabbed a few beers, and of course they had a pretty incredible list. And like somebody grabbed an Orval, and the guy, they have a different glass for each beer. He grabbed an Orval glass, and he was about to pour the beer in, and then he looked at it and he was like, nah, it's a little dirty. And he went and he like re-cleaned the glass before putting a beer in it at like their version of a dive bar. And when I think of like the best beer service that you can get in the U.S., like the Hop Leaf in Chicago, for example, I don't know if they'd even do that there. Like it's such an incredible attention to service, incredible attention to detail that they have over there that I really love drinking in Belgian bars. And so I would, if you weren't planning on doing a little bit of that, I would advocate more of that.
Any in particular?
There's one that I have that one of the ones that like a lot of people go to in Brussels is Motor Lambic.
Yeah.
And it's a phenomenal place. One of the ones that I like a lot it's not exactly off the beaten path. It's actually like in the heart of Tourist Central, but is not one that like everybody goes to, is this bar called Puschnellekelder, which has a lot of letters in it, so I'm not going to try and spell it. But it's basically it's across the street from the Mannequin Piss statue. And the name translates to like puppet cellar. So they've got all these crazy, terrifying puppets. Have you been there?
I have.
I love that bar.
Yeah.
I love that bar so much. They have, they have like 3 or 4 draft lines, and they're actually kind of clean. And they always have Terrace Bulba from De La Senon, which is an unbelievably crushable beer.
Yes.
Magic.
It's such a beautiful beer. And then just a phenomenal bottle list, which is kind of the way you want to go typically when you're in Belgium. And I love drinking there. The experience of drinking there is one of my favorite places to drink in the world.
That's awesome. Belgium in general, or in
no, that bar.
That bar
specifically. I mean, there are several bars that I really, really like in Brussels. And Brussels is where I've spent the most of my time when I've been over there. But that bar in particular is like one of those for me that I just deep love.
How about you, Nate? Anywhere that would be high on your list if you were to return to Belgium?
Oh man, if I would return to Belgium, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I'm pretty jaded on brewery tours, but the Belgians are incredibly idiosyncratic people, and they do things their own way, and it varies from like town to town, region to region. They're very hard and fast. This is the way we do it here, and I'm not gonna hear anything else about it. So absolutely, I would love to see some more breweries if I were going.
We specifically picked this time of year because this is kind of lambic brewing season.
Open brew days and all that.
Yeah, so we're going to try to see as many of the cool ships in action as possible. Yeah. So I think we're going to hit at least 4
nice
lambic breweries.
Yeah.
So that should be fun. And then I'm looking forward to a brewery tour at the Dola.
The Dola Brewers.
Yeah, which supposedly the head brewer and owner, Chris, his mother gives the tours. They're only on Sundays, I believe.
Yeah.
And she's like 90.
It sounds
So,
terribly Belgian.
I can't wait. And there's also a couple, if we get the nerve up, a couple small towns that have private houses that become cafes like one day a month or so.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a couple that we might be able to hit. We might hit the date and show up if we can get up the nerve, because it's supposed to be, I think mainly for locals and stuff like
Oh,
that.
sure.
Forget what I said about bars. That sounds. I mean, you're set.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what small town it's in, but there's one of the most famous lambic bars is a place called, if I'm saying this right, in Verzekering Tegen de Grote Dorst, which is insurance against the Great Thirst. It's a bar that's only open on Sundays for 2 hours after church lets out.
Yeah. I know.
That's so awesome.
But it's got like the deepest lambic cellar
But
of
they're
anywhere.
also open on bank holidays.
Oh, they are. Oh, you're right, they are.
And Wednesday is a bank holiday in Belgium. So we're going to be
Wouldn't
going
you know?
there. Yeah, we looked it up. Yeah.
Nailed
So I
it.
did a little bit of research. Will was talking about me just being led around, not knowing what's going on.
I think that it's really important that you just get into wherever that you get led to where you're going, and then you're like, "Oh my, Rodenbach, I love this place," and then that'd be great, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't it be a surprise?
I'm with you.
All right.
I think now, have we wasted enough time? Sorry. Okay, perfect. Woo! I think it's about time we listen to some music, and I'm going to clear my throat a little more, maybe drink a Red Bull, and we'll come back with more of the special Wednesday edition of the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. See you soon. Welcome back to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable on WLPN LP Chicago, 105.5 FM, Lumpin Radio. I am your host, Chris Quinn, and I am joined by, quite the ritual getting your headset on. I mean, that was intense, dude. Sir William Charles Moore, Nate Nelson, and Master Crusherone Pat Fahey, who just opened up a lovely bottle of Fanta Flora. What is the actual beer name?
It is called. It's fitting for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Need a Hug.
Oh, thank you.
It is
Are you okay,
an
Chris?
Appalachian,
Mm-hmm.
some sort of apple something. Wild ale with blueberries and elderberries.
And apples.
I knew it smelled like my dad.
It's very good. Thank you for bringing that.
Of course.
So we were talking about things during the break and figuring out what we wanted to talk about, and we decided we're gonna talk about the BCS release, and by that I mean Bourbon County Stout, Bourbon County brand stout from Goose Island, Black Friday. Really, the first big retail level beer release thing
Yeah.
to ever happen. I mean, they made in the beer world, Black Friday means one thing. I think
It's a given
nationwide
now.
at
Yeah.
this point, and it is Bourbon County comes out that day. So this year there were quite a few. We talked a little bit about it on the show earlier, when not earlier this show, but in previous episodes when Josh Noel and I had this kind of were invited to this preview, and but there's certainly were a lot this year. So there was the regular, there was the reserve, I think it was called, which was
The 11-year Knob Creek
Knob Creek,
Barrel
yep,
Reserve.
Barrel Reserve, exactly. There was the Northwoods,
The blueberry and almond extract
yes,
added. Bourbon County.
lots of almond extract from what
Such
I remember.
almond.
And then there was the Proprietors, which changes every year.
Yeah.
And this year it was Bananas Foster, right? Basically.
And coffee.
And coffee. And barley. Oh, Bananas Foster. Wait, there was coffee and prop?
No.
Oh, and there
No.
was coffee.
No.
And there was barley wine. So
Yeah.
there were six.
Yeah.
6 variants this year,
Yeah.
which is the most they've ever done, I believe.
Yeah, they intended to do 7, but then they decided that the
King Henry.
The King Henry V2 didn't live up to their expectations, so
Yes.
they dumped it all.
Yes.
Without going into any detail about what was wrong with it.
Right.
which is fine.
And I think we're in a bit of a unique position here in Chicago because I think our releases are really different than they are everywhere else in the country. Not necessarily for the better. It just is different.
It's
not for the worse, not for the better. It's just different.
Yeah, there are different expectations, and it's bigger.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very, very big this year at at Binny's. I think there was first of all a lot that the allocations for each person, which is always a big deal, were quite high at Binny's this year. But still, I think they ran out sooner than expected.
But they guaranteed 1,100 people the full allocation of what they were going to deliver on, and I think they had 1,500. I mean, it's just an unbelievable. Like I've never gone to Black Friday at the big Binny's.
I went once, the very first year, the original OG Rare,
2010,
and I haven't been back. Yeah,
it's just like I can't imagine. You know that there's going to be more than 1,000 people, and it's going to start like, the morning of Thanksgiving. Which side note, like, don't these people have families? Doesn't someone love them somewhere?
No is the short answer.
The answer is no. They fill the vote with Bourbon County.
To give you an idea, so that first year, I think I showed up before I went to work because I had to work on Black Friday. I think they gave everyone numbers. I had the number still for a long time, but I don't know if I still do. But I think it was like number 38 in line or something like that. And I just kind of rolled up, waited, got it, left, went to work. And nowadays, people are there Thanksgiving night, like you were.
Oh, the day of Thanksgiving. Supposedly the line started at 11 a.m. Thanksgiving Day, 24 hours before anyone was going to get anything.
Those are people who hate their families, though. Don't want to be with their family.
There are plenty of people that want to skip Thanksgiving. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that's a great excuse if you just, like you said, hate.
But you can't say I have to do it and then not do it.
I mean, those are people who literally hate everything.
Yeah. Alternatively, you force your family to go with you, which is what happened this year because one of the big things that people have been talking about is that they accidentally gave a kid a ticket. Because you don't know who was even in, because they bring in the big camping whole family tent. You don't know who's in there. It's like, oh yeah, we got 3 people, and then 16-year-old gets a ticket for a X number of Bourbon County stouts, and then dad's going up and down the line saying, "Who will give me $100 for this ticket?"
Just trying to get their allocation, man.
Really, people were
just trying to feed
He was
my kids.
selling the ticket.
Well, that's the only way anyone found out that they gave a ticket to a 16-year-old is because his dad was like, "I'm gonna make some money on this."
Good for you, Dad. Show him capitalism and a giving thanks.
The spirit of Black Friday.
The spirit of Black Friday. There you go.
People,
what a good guy.
People talk a lot about the secondary market on these. Is that the 1.5 market?
Yeah.
Where does that fall?
the tertiary market.
What is it?
It's not though. It's it's pre the beer actually exists in your hands.
I feel like that's the
and it's
sort
totally
of thing.
legal too. You're not selling a controlled substance.
I would encourage a lot of people to try to fork out counterfeit tickets for money in these situations. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I just
mobile scanner, mobile printer, and just crank them out.
Come on, you can get that. Get a single ticket chain. Everyone's got Photoshop these days. It's no big deal.
This is a whole new mule scenario. They used to talk about people are sending their grandmas to stand in line send the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, grandma's old. Don't make her stand up anymore.
Ship the kids out.
It's wrong. It's wrong.
Oh, never
mind.
mind.
I said ship the kids.
Sorry.
Jeez.
Better safe than sorry.
Take that ham out of your ears there.
So the thing is...
Come on, man.
It's okay.
Anyway, the point is that Chicago's on the bleeding edge of ruining beer.
Yeah, and apparently people were there at 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning or whatever, and didn't get really anything other than the regular, or maybe regular barley wine or something like that. So it's crazy. So the point being, the question I have, well, you said ruining beer. Why is this ruining beer in your mind, Nate?
I don't know. It's just, I mean, I like beer too, but at a certain point, spend Thanksgiving with your family. Don't, don't walk away from your familial obligations to wait in a line with like 1,500 drunk strangers in the dark. I mean, I don't know. And again, like some guy getting a ticket for his underage child and then trying to make money off of that ticket instead of, alerting someone, say, hey, actually you gave this to my son and he's here to hang out with us, but he can't buy alcohol.
Right.
That's capitalism in action.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you go and wait in line for Bourbon County, you can't escape conversations about secondary and like, oh, I've already got a guy who's going to give me X number of dollars for this beer and this beer, but then I'm pawning it off of this guy, and it's just it's already dollars and cents while you're waiting in the dark to buy this beer the next day.
So are these people, in your mind or in your estimation, beer lovers, or are they people who are trying to turn a profit, or are they trying to trade it for other beer, or is it trade it for dollars?
I think they are genuine beer lovers, and I think people get a little bit confused about this. I mean, it's the fact is it's not profitable enough to do this if you don't like have any skin in this game. Like you're like the amount of time you spend, like, spend 20 hours in a line to maybe make $100. Like, is that really worth your time on Thanksgiving Day? Probably not.
Right. So why do they do it?
To get that
The
rare
hunt.
loot.
I think it's the rare loot, right? Is it
yeah.
rare drops? Is that what it is?
Yeah, that rare loot, getting and flipping it, getting that rare thing from that other part of the country or whatever.
Whalesboro.
It's
all about the Whalesboro.
So is there now, I mean, again, these are all opinions, and we see these people daily and stuff like that with some of them.
They walk among us, Chris.
Do you think now Binny's, I think for them, because this has become, I think, essentially a Binny's release and to a lesser extent a Jewel release. So Binny's and Jewel, we did not, for the first time in our shop, we did not do a Black Friday thing. And it wasn't because I was trying to take a moral high ground. It was because the reality of it was I told people, listen, I don't want people lining up in front of my store and then just not getting as much or not being satisfied with what I'm able to give them as compared to if they went to a Binny's and then ran around and tried to pick stuff up at Jewel.
Sounds like you're taking the moral high ground. That's what it sounds like.
Maybe. I mean, I could have put it out for sale. People would have lined up. I did it Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Instead, my thought is
heard.
is people go out of town and then they come back after Thanksgiving, and those people can still get some of the rare loot too. But anyway, that's not really what I was talking about. So, I mean, Binny's, I think, in their mind, obviously they want to get as much as possible. They want to make it as big as possible.
Yeah.
They want to make it as profitable for them as possible. And, that just, it is what it is. On Goose Island's end, do you think there's anything they can do? Or do you think this is what they want too? I know for a while that this is what they wanted.
They want
they had, I don't know if they still do, drone shots running down the lines and then making like videos of it. So do you think that there's anything Goose could do if they were interested in not having people lining up on and missing out on, or is it's not up to them? Hey man, this beer goes here. If you want to want to not spend Thanksgiving Day, that's up to you.
But they explicitly take care of that. They have an event the week before called Prop Day. So if you get the opportunity to purchase a ticket through their like random lottery thing, you go there and you and a guest can each get 3 bottles each of like the new proprietors and the reserve. So that's what they choose to do. So they have a big kind of hyper local event the week before, and then pandemonium the weekend after Thanksgiving.
Okay. And how would you like to see anyone? How would you like to see a release like this? Is there a way that you think is better to do this, Nate?
No, not really. I mean, there are going to be people, running and gunning all weekend, trying to get as much rare stuff as they can. There are going to be people that would like to have it but aren't willing to put in that kind of effort, and I don't blame them at all because that's the sensible thing to do. But yeah, I mean, there's no way to get there's no way to avoid disappointment and hurt feelings when you have something whose supply is overshadowed by the demand.
Mm-hmm. What if they, and this would be self-serving to me, what if they just sent one case of everything, or however many cases, just everywhere, so there's a little bit everywhere, so no one's really standing in line. It's just, you have to try to, that way if you go to your local place, your guy, I got a guy here, they always hold one for me, and it's more like that. You don't have these big crazy lines, or maybe less of one. If there's
that
more
would create
places.
a whole different sort of chaos.
Oh yeah.
And the first year would be weird, and it would but then once again, the people who figure out how to get their 16-year-old in a tent getting a ticket would find a way to be like, okay, well, I'm going to hit all of these stores that people don't usually go to, and I'm going to get more than my, I don't know.
It's good to keep the
But I mean,
chaos
like Buffalo Trace
concentrated, I
antique
agree.
collection bourbons and stuff like that.
Same deal.
I mean,
Hey.
you have them lined up in a single place, or is it kind of...
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the store, but some places do line up, and there are guys who literally chase the trucks and say, okay, I saw you literally with the case in your hand. I want as many as you're willing to give me right now.
Right.
So
It's just going to
it's
be
a mess.
gamed no matter what.
For every game, there is a strategy.
Yeah, well, I mean, some states actually do a lottery. So if, for instance, the state of Virginia has a lottery on pretty much all the rarer bourbon, so you.
Well,
put your
that's a
name-
bad example then. I mean, we're talking about beer releases, I suppose,
Yeah,
that aren't,
I don't know. I mean, I think the whole idea is to make news. It's supposed to be a big to do.
It's
Right.
free, it's free publicity, I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's not free. It's probably very expensive for them to put all this together, but it is publicity.
But I mean, Benny's puts on this big Black Friday thing. What does that cost Goose Island or AB or whoever? I don't think there are breweries that put on this sort of thing. You look at Three Floyds Darkness Day, Hunapoo Day at Cigar City. Nope, Dark Lord Day.
That was a foul.
No, I know. I was gonna mention Surly Darkness Day and Three Floyds, and I just combined them.
It makes, I got it.
But so, you have events where the brewery is putting these things on. In this case, this is not something that Goose Island does. Goose Island releases the beer to retailers around this time, but this is something that the retailer is putting on.
Yeah, but
So,
they're also making sure that all
it
these
was
retailers
created in collaboration with them. Yeah.
but that's my point is, I don't think it's necessarily costing the brewery anything to release the beer at this time and then have the onus be on the retailer to figure out how to allocate it. Or
Well, I mean, in a way, the brewery's doing all the promotions. I mean, Juul's not, making big media blasts about Black Friday. This is, what's coming out. They just agree to sell all the beer the day after Thanksgiving and not before.
Now, it's kind of similar to, they were the first to do it, and now people are doing it a little bit differently. And I'm curious if they're kicking themselves because people talk about, how much Goose Island sold to AB for, and then, just a few years later, Ballast Point sold for $1 billion, where, Goose sold for probably more like $40 million or something like that, and was a bigger brewery at the time. Yeah. And so, is it, they started this big thing and they did it at retail. Everyone now is basically doing it direct from their brewery. They're doing the direct sales.
The own premise.
Yeah. I mean, do you think it's too late for Goose to just be like, sorry, Benny's, we're doing all of it direct to us?
But you can't move the kind of units that Goose Island is doing with Bourbon County. They make a lot of beer. You
Right,
can't
I'm
sell
saying-
it all on premise.
do you think
on
the?
event.
But I mean, maybe not. But they could do all of the Chicago. Probably. I mean, do you think if 1,500 people are willing to line up at Benny's,
With
if all of a sudden-
3,000 people being able to be willing to do it.
if all of a sudden Goose was like, we're not going to. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know the numbers on prop day, but it was pretty big. It was four tiered windows of time where you could come in and drink and purchase the beer. So.
But this would just become get your bottles and go. They could even do it pre-sale. I mean, that's kind of what Hunapoo was, right? They just kind of pre-sell it, and you pick it up, and you go.
And two, and this is actually more of a question than anything that I'm saying. So when was the first time that Goose did like the Black Friday release?
For Rare in 2010.
Yeah, it's 2010.
So were they the first to really do maybe like a Black Friday release, but how long has Dark Lord Day been a thing?
2000.
No, yeah, they weren't the first to do it, but they were the first to do it. I
before that.
think like this big retail event. I think.
And here's the other thing too. Just because I've heard this a couple times, it's Black Friday means this thing to beer people. I don't pay before I worked in the industry, when I was kind of more on the consumer side, I paid a lot more attention to releases and release date sorts of things. Mm-hmm. But I think that maybe that's a Chicago thing to an extent, because because I lived in Minnesota until 2012, and I was on the consumer side, and Black Friday didn't mean anything to me from a beer perspective.
I think then
up until
now,
I came to Chicago. When I came to Chicago, it's like, oh, that's when they do Bourbon County release. I still knew Bourbon County was release was a thing, but
you didn't know it was Black Friday. It's interesting.
Yeah. So I think that might be a Chicago mentality, or I don't know.
We should get some people from Goose and talk to them. It's overdue that we have some Goose people on this show.
Get Levi on the show. Levi Borgmaster.
That's true. We should just ask him.
Yeah.
I'm thinking somebody maybe a little closer to the ground, literally, because Levi lives in a spaceship in outer space.
I mean, we're in a dirigible, so
true. I'm thinking
that's still a few.
Someone
miles
more closer to the ground. I'm saying someone in the trenches, who could answer some of those questions for us. So I'll have to work on that. Anything else about Bourbon County? Has anyone had it yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were all adequate.
All adequate?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
The adequate one. You like that one.
Honestly, I like Reg style. The proprietors was nice. It's very subtle. I think the two of us weren't in love with the blueberry. The Northwoods had kind of some Yankee Candle notes for the time being. It's a bit over the top in the saccharin, but I think over time it's going to mellow out into something a little more palatable. I did not like the coffee, and I was very upset about it. I don't know if I'm just getting more sensitive to that kind of green bell pepper flavor of coffee, but I was picking that up a lot when I sampled it.
Okay.
Did they pasteurize this year? Do we know? Yes.
Right? I mean,
I think across the board. I believe that.
I thought they stated that they were going to a long time ago.
I mean, this might be the unpopular opinion, but I hope they did.
Yeah.
It's not all the investors are with you. Everyone that owns a stake in anything that they're doing is 100% with you.
No, after what happened in the past, it doesn't make sense for a beer like that to not pasteurize.
Yeah, belt and suspenders from now on.
Yeah, I agree with you about the coffee, though. It was, not necessarily the bell pepper thing, but considering I think they had, included some other. It was not up to snuff.
That's too bad to hear too, because I'm not a huge coffee beer fan, but I've had some Bourbon County coffee variants in the past that I've been extremely impressed with.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So
absolutely.
That is not having tasted this.
And they change it up every year. They use different coffee every year.
Bad to
they
hear.
went back to the original, the Black Cat espresso,
which was still my favorite BCS ever. Was the first time they.
Which
ever
was
did
why
it.
I was so excited, and then.
But the base beer has changed quite a bit since then too.
Well, and they just used Keurig cups to do it this time. That's
Well, that's the cheapest
little
way to
known
get Black
fact.
Hat.
Yeah.
Keurig
BCS
does
coffee.
Black Hat, canisters now. That's
I mean, it's a big Keurig cup, but
it's a K cup.
It's the size of a cat. That's
capital K
a
cup.
little cat, but like a kitten. And I thought I've said it before. I thought the Reserve was good. That was my favorite.
Yeah.
I dug that one.
Little hot, but
See, that's what I liked
Chris.
about it. I liked that it was
Everyone
hot.
hates
I
you,
liked that it was
Chris.
aggressive.
not even close.
I want
That's
a confrontational
What?
beer.
As somebody from
Well, it'd be
Minnesota who has a deep love of the Northwoods, I'm very sad to hear that they named a beer Northwoods and it wasn't good. Like that.
Yeah.
That just it rubs my Minnesotaness the wrong way.
I dig.
And is that it?
Unless you have something else you want to say.
And
No,
note,
we
we're
need to
gonna
go.
move on.
We need to go investigate the Minnesotaness.
I don't know if we do.
No,
Nah,
All
we don't. So
Thanks, Chris.
you're welcome. We don't want to talk to Pat. He'll talk plenty. Don't worry. So here's a little off-topic thing I wanted to talk to you guys about.
Not interested.
Right. So we've talked about this, I think, on the show before, perhaps, but not for a while. So we're trying to roll out a customer loyalty program. We've been trying to
Here we go.
for a long time. And we've got a bar, we've got a bottle shop, and these things are supposed to be two-way streets. They're supposed to be get customers to come in and shop with us, and also give customers thank yous and rewards or benefits for doing that. So it's supposed to be a mutually beneficial thing. Are you guys even listening to what we're talking about? You can say yes.
Mutually beneficial thing. Totally listening to you. Don't worry, honey.
You're trying to get a loyalty program off the ground, and I'm trying to get him to pour me the Farnham Hill cider out of the can.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So anyway,
but yeah, treats for data.
yes. Now we're all coughing.
Too real.
Anyway, so we've been trying to think what do people want, and I'm curious what you guys would think would be something that is, and it doesn't need to be necessarily realistic. What are the things that you wish you could get from a place where you wanted to either sit down and have a drink or take a 6-pack or whatever to go? And should I? Well, I want to hear what you guys have to say, and then I've been asking people this for literally years, and there's one thing that people have told me far and away more than anything else, but I don't want to. I'll wait.
Oh man.
But you don't have to think about what people say. What do you? I mean, what to you would be like something interesting or cool, or what could a bottle shop or a bar do for you to say thank you that would really be kind of cool and meaningful?
Oh man, cool and meaningful.
Anything? Will? Yeah.
I think that
Pat's taking a leak, apparently. What?
I don't think that there's any above and beyond from a particular interaction perspective. It's a long-term thing for me. I'm not looking for any special treatment in particular.
Okay.
Mug club. Don't do a mug club.
Yeah.
That involves throwing a mug at
It's so
Pat
funny, you guys
when
are
he
so
comes in and then dumping raw
uncreative.
beer on.
Like, you don't think there's anything you can do for a customer to say thank you that they would also be like, hey, that's.
I mean,
I appreciate that.
There
Thank you.
absolutely are. I just don't want to give you my good ideas.
Oh, okay.
Not for free.
Yeah,
I promise I won't take any of your ideas.
I believe that actually.
So, all right. So then you guys have anything, Nate, or you still are drawing a blank? I thought I would get some interesting stuff out of
flummoxed.
you guys. Okay.
Look,
So
give all your
one
best
thing-
customers access to all the best beers. That everyone knows that.
Rare loot.
That's
hobby.
what they wanted. Information is what people wanted. They wanted to know when stuff was coming out. That was by far the thing. Like, I want to know. I want information about what is coming in. That's what the people who came in a lot wanted to know. At least for our store.
Or beyond even information, one thing that might be cool would be to do when you do have interesting things coming in, to do small release parties or small tastings even for I feel like that'd be a great feature for people that go to your store. You get a lot of very interesting things in, and probably the people that buy from you the most are people who really appreciate when something special is coming out. If you could say, okay, we've collected some of the more special releases across this quarter. we're not even necessarily going to be selling them. We're just going to, for all of our, like for our loyalty group or for our top group of customers, we're just going to do a tasting of all of these beers that are rather hard to find and even hard to buy. I feel like that's something that, especially in sort of the current culture we have of, I don't want to say ticking culture because that has kind of a negative connotation, but like people want to try new things. And for some of these beers that are like rare and hard to get, it's not necessarily that people are like, oh, I need to have a pint of this. They're like, I just really, I'd like to try this and see what it's like.
Right.
Maybe doing that sort of thing would be something that people would be interested in.
Yeah. The millennials are very experiential in what they like.
You can take that idea if you want.
The millennials only like crushable. That's why they need the crusher-owns.
Yes.
This has been well documented by Drizzly.
Yeah, I was going to say this is why on Drizzly everybody's going to macro beer.
Everyone knows that crushability is the metric of the future.
I love how Will has nothing to add and then just talks about something different in the final segment.
No. This is clearly related because
I'll
I think
wait
what
for
you
you
should introduce all of your best, all of the people that care about what's being done is crushability is what it's all about, and also cheese pairings. You should do that as well.
Crushability.
Let's be honest. If you're not crushing beer, you want cheese in beer. I loved the Randy Mosher and John Hall cheese pairing event. I was happy at that. So
I really hope that people don't walk away from this with the impression that the only thing I like to do with beer is just crush it, which I feel like is I'm getting pigeonholed. It's bad. It's
I
bad.
think you pigeonholed yourself, though, to be fair.
I like beer that you can drink. There's nothing wrong with that.
Hey.
That's actually
nobody is judging you for being a master crusher-own.
No.
We're just stating that you are one.
Listen to me. Like Pat is right about this. It's like so he says crushability, but the drinkability.
I just mean beers that you can drink,
or moorishness, or whatever you want to go. Like a quaffable. Like you just have to have a beer that is not ever going to wear your palate down to the point that you don't want to continue drinking it.
Can I sidetrack and make a case for myself? Can I?
And then I'll sidetrack back to the topic.
Okay,
I'll try.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But it more the crushability or the importance of crushability.
Yes.
I can't believe I'm talking about
the
this.
importance of crushability.
Truly what it is it's kind of a rally against like really big, really intense, really over-the-top beers. I mean, for a period of time, and it is becoming less so this way, I feel like we are seeing trends towards more sessionable beers.
Yes, we're seeing trends in multiple directions at once.
That's true. I would agree with that.
Because adjunct stouts and the most undrinkable
the pastry stouts.
The pastry stouts
all those
are the most undrinkable. And I don't mean like undrinkable because they're disgusting. I mean it's
you can't drink very much of
they
it.
have a massive impact in a very small burst.
But that's
good luck with that model. And that's exactly pointing to the problem. Is that might be popular right now. People might think that that's novel. That is not sustainable at all. And at some point, everyone's going to realize that they don't actually want to drink those beers, which is why I'm actually admiring the fact that Pat's standing up for crushable
I don't know,
beers.
man. That's been
subtle
going on
flavors.
for a while.
You think that it's okay. You can stretch it out as long as you want. It's not sustainable. At some point, everyone's going to be like, "Wait, oh no, that's not beer. Like, what are you even doing?"
I'm going to write
good luck
a
for
really
that
good
time.
essay called "The Essence of Crushability," but that's a side note.
Mash Tun Journal.
Mash Tun. Ooh.
I've been planning to put out a beer like called "Imminently Crushable" for years. That was definitely.
But what were
on
you
the
saying?
table.
Pat was actually saying stuff.
I don't know if I
please.
was, but
No, it was a pushback against.
But I mean, that is kind of the thing. Is like there was a period of time where it was like, how extreme can we make beer? How intense can we make it? The most important beers, or the beers that people get the most excited about, are the Bourbon County Stouts or the Hunapus or the Dark Lords, and they're exciting, they're interesting. But personally, I don't find myself wanting, like, if I have the opportunity to try them, I'm like, cool, I want to try an ounce or two. I don't want to sit down and drink a 10-ounce even serving of those kinds of beers, just because they're not like, they're very interesting, but they're so intense.
And I think they also get shared among a bunch of people.
And that's why people think that they're great, because they all drink an ounce of them. And is that really the beer experience that people
it's
are
the
looking
Pepsi
for?
It is
challenge.
a beer experience. It is a beer experience.
That's the thing. I don't
Getting
wanna-
together- together with your buddies
not-
and cracking this special bottle
It's
and
not
each
hating
getting
on
3
I
ounces
don't.
is an beer experience.
I don't want to say that that's a bad thing, because I enjoy that too. Like, I do like getting.
We just did it with Fontafora,
Yeah,
essentially.
You know, or though I would argue that you could drink.
Yeah.
I would drink a serving of that.
Yeah,
if we
yeah.
if we grabbed like a Bourbon County Rare, I'd be like, I'd love to have 2 ounces of that, and that's about all I'd want to have.
Sure.
Of it. And that is a beer experience, and it's not a bad one. It's it is an enjoyable thing. But in general, in the majority of my beer drinking life, I like things that I'm like, I want to sit down and have a pint of that. Like, that is what I look for. And
That's what I want
And
my
it-
specialty to
and if
be.
you
I'm going to
would-
get my master's in this.
if you would like me to come by the store in a consulting, position to rate the crushability of every
Right.
single beer in your
So
catalog,
I think
would
we
do
need
that
to
for you.
start a
Okay.
we need to start a judging of crushable beers where all of the judges have to drink like 6 ounces of the beer. Like, that's because that's the problem, is that a lot of the judging now, people are drinking such small amounts of everything that they're not taking crushability into account.
It's a different way to
And
judge a beer.
It
I mean,
is,
it's true.
and it is really, to me, the ultimate judgment on a beer. And I would love to see the crushable beer judging, happen.
So like
because-
they have it FOBAB, like that sliding scale, acceptable, appropriate, not appropriate.
Well, look,
crushability, appropriate.
Well, no.
Yes.
Crushability should be a
Inappropriate.
metric, but the judges must drink that much of the beer. That's just what that's so it's without.
That's ridiculous.
That's
I
so
know.
that is
ridiculous.
I know-
amazingly awesome, and you're wrong.
I know as a crusherone that this
Master.
would go a master crusherone that this goes against everything I stand for. Not really, but kind of. But I brought this up in a class a long time ago and was like, I want to make this a thing. And I'm going to use this as a forum to make it a thing right now.
Nice.
So, not crushability, but, I have a dream.
Oh boy.
Keep going.
Never mind. I would like to see, in the future, we don't look at like the IBUs. IBUs are overrated. We look at the quaffability quotient.
We're talking about like Jetsons future, or like Blade Runner.
Like hybrid.
Got it.
But so quaffability quotient. Every beer has a single quaffability quotient. Tells you how crushable it is, really, is what it comes down to.
The QQ.
What's the QC?
What's the QQ?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm not getting strong support around the table.
I'm 100% in the quaffability quotient would be how many units of this beer you will drink before you want to stop drinking it. And I think that makes 100% sense to me.
It makes sense. It's ridiculous to use that in a judging fashion.
No. I
You don't
think that
judge
I would
drinkability
like-
because
no,
guess
no.
what wins?
So
water.
You're absolutely
Uncarbonate
right.
water.
I
You're
love
absolutely
water.
right.
I do
I
too.
do
It's
really
great.
like
As
water.
Garrett
And the
Oliver
gold medal
says
winner
about-
again is from whatever brewing
Aquafina.
company. Yeah.
Water.
Water.
There are real water experts out there, and not all water is equally crushable.
No.
So, however, I would like to say that I was.
This is
That's true.
devolving
That's
quickly.
true. You're right.
We're going
We
off
are-
the rails.
Okay.
Anyway,
Off
I
the
think
rails.
that,
the point being, you're judging based on parameters, and drinkability, I guess, is so hard to quantify with like legitimate like metrics, or like it's so subjective that I think that it's it's impossible.
So the way that the Pepsi challenge worked, for instance, was that people preferred Pepsi when they had a sip of it, but when they drank an entire one, almost everyone preferred Coke. This is the issue with judging to me today, is that people aren't looking at the long run experience of drinking a beer, and rather it is biased towards people merely tasting things, which is fine. I mean, I'm all about tasting beer, and I believe in that.
That's how
Yeah.
it has been.
However, that doesn't
That's how
necessarily mean
wine tastings are. I mean,
How do you combat that?
Nobody that's doing wine tasting actually drinks wine, where everyone except Gerald, who is not here, drinks. Like, Gerald is the only person that I know that consistently.
I'll just
spends time
remain
tasting beer.
silent on that one.
I mean, it's tough though. I totally agree with what you're saying. I do a lot of judging, and at first blush, it's easy to filter out a bunch of beers where you go, okay, this has this flaw, or okay, the balance isn't right. But at the end of the day, when you get to a group of beers where it's like, okay, these are all good, yeah, part of it is
Which one do I want to drink?
Well, part of it is beyond that is like, would I still feel the same way about this 4, 5, 8, 10 ounces into a glass as I do having a quarter to half an ounce?
Absolutely.
And the problem you run into there is that you have a finite number of judges, and you can't make everybody sit down and be like, okay, we're at the top 10 beers. You're all going to drink a pint, and then you're going to have a courteous and reasonable discussion about each of those beers. Like,
No.
just not a...
It shouldn't happen in almost any judging circumstance. I'm just saying that there should be an absurd judging circumstance of just the crushable beers, where that's,
I do know that in Fobab there was a judge who was at the best of show table. I don't know if he was this year, but he has been in past years, where drinkability has been something that person fought for. Like, do you want to have a glass of this beer? Do you want to have a full serving of this beer?
God bless that person.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's something important to evaluate, and it is something that, especially with beers that are meant to be drank in quantity, like if you're judging a barrel-aged imperial stout, I'm a little bit less worried about, do I want to have a pint of this? Because I probably don't, regardless of what it is. But like, if you're judging Pilsner, like, even if you're only drinking a little bit, I want to be thinking on that, like, would I sit down and drink 2 or 3 of these? Because that's what you want out of a good German Pils or something.
At the same,
It's hard to evaluate, though.
I mean, judging beer is also kind of like judging dogs in a way. Like, yeah, this is the best poodle, but
it's
I
all
still
made
want
up.
a bulldog. But I don't want a poodle. I want, or I like this dog. I don't like that dog. Or, you can still like. It's all personal
This is
preference.
really weird. What you're saying right now is just making me feel uncomfortable.
Judging things that are just purely matters of personal taste, I think, are.
Yeah, but I don't think that drinkability is personal taste. That's a huge mistake. I think that there are actually metrics that could be, put forth that it's a real thing, that we're talking about something abstract now, but there will actually
I
be
disagree.
real. No,
Objective truth, Chris.
no. I just think that. Anyways, we'll get there.
We'll get where?
We'll get to
There.
the point. We'll get to the point where drinkability is
Blade
actually.
Runner future where Pat
Look,
wants
this
us
is
all
like
to live.
this is like saying, maybe I'm in the 50s and I'm talking about Pat's talking about sabermetrics, right? That's a real thing. It's going to happen. One day there will actually be a legitimate scientific drinkability index that people will be able to put forth, and that's that'll end this discussion for good. No, you don't agree?
I'm just making stuff
disagree.
up, and any attempt to let's just cut it
I'm
right
not-
there.
All right. Well, thanks for taking over the conversation and then just beating into it until we talk about what you want to talk
I
about.
gave you
Will.
your chance to talk, Chris.
I remember when you gave me that chance. You were looking the other way, talking to Pat about cider.
I don't know how we got here, but
Yeah.
I think it might be my fault, and I'm sorry.
Apology not accepted.
Not accepted. I agree. At least Will and I can agree with that. It's all Pat's fault, and he's not forgiven. Guys, we're pretty much out of time. We didn't get to any letters, so if you guys want to know, tell me what should be in a loyalty program. Let me know. It might be too late. I think we're rolling it out in.
That's what everyone in the loyalty
So,
program said. So
If we have the time, are you able to disclose what you're thinking?
Yeah. So we're gonna have essentially rewards. You accrue points for wherever you spend. You get money off merch. You get the early, for every certain amount you get a free draft, and then eventually you get free like a free store shopping spree, a free bar tab, free first beer for a month. You could get you can pick anything from our beer Bible list and take it to go, or get it for free eventually. Ooh. Or not have any corkage fees applied to you. There's going to be like a second tier where some of those things happen, where it's like a certain, and we have to tier it because there's certain things that we can't do for everyone. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have, if we have stuff that is limited, we're going to take a portion of that, and depending on how much we get of it overall, we can either say, listen, you don't worry about grabbing what's on the shelf. You guys are taken care of for 3 days. It doesn't matter that you're working and everyone's coming in at noon because they don't work, or sending other people to grab it for you. You've got 3 days to get it, and then it's going back on the shelf. Or if we don't have enough for everyone there, still the bulk will always go on the shelf, but a smaller portion will be set aside and say, hey guys, there's this much, or we have some, not a ton, but come on in and you can grab it after 3 days. It's gone. Or we don't even have much at all, even in this second, allocation. Come on in, but at least it's limited to, less people. And then there'll even be, kind of like a Diamond Elite Red VIP Club one up there. Ooh. And that's where you can get double allocations. So if it's allocation of 1, you can get 2. If it's 2, you get 4. You can get, and it rolls over quarterly, or it's reassessed quarterly. So once a quarter, you can reserve one bottle. Be like, okay, I know that in this case, this quarter probably would have been like proper reserve. Mm-hmm. That's my one, and we just hold it for you ahead of time. Or say, I heard Cantillon's coming in the next month. If it comes in, I want one of them. Sure. Stuff like that. And then also when we'll have like a kind of like a raid the cellar type thing, where sometimes we do like Easter eggs, where we put a whole bunch of stuff out on the shelf. We'll call these people in, like, if you come in on this day or ahead of time, they're all going to be on the table. You can pick one ahead of time, and then whatever's left we're going to throw up on the shelf. And these would be for regular long-standing customers. This would be based on lifetime spend,
lifetime achievements,
and then also there would be life. So even if you aren't doing a ton, you'll just accrue some of these rewards slower. But for the ones who are doing it more on a quarterly basis and coming in often, you'll get some of these rewards in addition to free drafts and free merch. And
so like is Cicerone going to accrue benefits?
Did you just make that up right as you were saying it? Because that was amazing.
No.
Have you thought about that at all?
No.
Okay.
Well, we have 2 minutes. We got to go. It's insiders at craftbeertemple.com. Let me know what you thought about those rewards. If there's anything else we missed, there's a whole bunch of other ideas we're playing around with. We want to do some fun stuff that people actually like. And I wanted to thank my guests, Nate, Will, and Pat. And I wanted to thank Serge and Lumpin for having us on this extra special day, and for you guys who are listening. And next week, guess what? We have an extra special guest host, Mr. Strong Mike. Both Dust brothers will be in the house.
A double dust
billing.
Event.
Yeah, they'll both be there. They may not get past the what beer have you been drinking lately segment. That might go 2 hours long, knowing those two. But anyway, thanks, guys. Any final words for anyone?
Visit a national park.
I agree. Visit a local brewery also.
Drink local beer in a national park.
Crushable beer.
Crushable
beer.
Crushable beer in a national park.
Crush a beer in a national park.
God bless us, everyone.
All right.
Merry Christmas,
thank you, guys.
Everybody.
See you soon, or a week or so. Thanks, goodbye.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, Remember, this is what we wanted.